very established powerlifter, world-class bodybuilder, representing the Bullman family, who was notorious in the country of Ireland. You grew up, that's all you knew.
I've never known anything other than the gym and bodybuilding. I was 11 years old, so they had a pre-teen division.
Oh, you were in it?
With 5 kids that we all were in the gym lifting weights and doing calisthenics because all our parents were bodybuilders, and we got on stage and competed, and I loved the art of building your physique to the way that you want it. I love the art of posing on stage and showcasing your physique.
All right, we are joined by IFBB NPC Pro Judge Brian the Bull Bullman by way of Ireland, now living in my former hometown of Placentia, California. Brian and I have a lot of history here. We go all the way back to the early 2000s. That's 25 plus years. But Brian is no snowflake. He didn't just arrive on the scene overnight. He's a very established powerlifter, world-class bodybuilder, representing the Bullman family, who is notorious in the country of Ireland. His father ran bodybuilding over there for many, many years in the, is it the IRFBB?
BBF.
Republic of Ireland.
Bodybuilding Federation.
Bodybuilding Federation. Got a very established uncle who competed in the Masters Pro bodybuilding circuit, big Shawn Bullman. How many titles did Shawn win?
Shawn won the Irish national titles 21.
21 times.
Yeah.
And I actually met Brian back, I think it was 2001, by way of a thing called the internet. I was actually in my final year of competition, got an email from this kid on my website seeking my services over in Ireland. Was I the first guy, or you had some other bodybuilders before me?
You were the first guy since 95. Jim Quinn came over.
Jim Quinn, yeah.
With a Twin Lab. They were the title sponsor, so they sent Jim Quinn over. And then before Jim, it was Dorian in 1989.
He was nobody then.
No,
was he Mr. Britain?
He had won the British and got his pro card. He hadn't made his pro debut yet. And then before him, we had Tom Platz in 1986.
So I was like the 4th guy to come in like 2001.
Yeah, in like 30 years.
The final year of my competition, only 1 week after the Mr. Olympia.
Yep.
And your dad, Mick Bullman.
Yep.
Notoriously friends with a lot of the bodybuilders and very responsible for putting bodybuilding on the map over there in the country of Ireland.
Yeah, so, you know, my father, he was never a bodybuilder.
Right.
My father was a national judo champion, and then he happened to be the PT sergeant for the brigade back home in Ireland, in the army. And he went to one of my uncle's contests, and it was on in like a pool hall, and they were standing on beer crates posing, and they were asked to move out of the way so some dude with a cigarette in his mouth could take a shot on the pool table. And so my dad was like, this is not happening. He rode off to Ben Weider, and they started the IFBB sanction in Ireland in, I think it was 1981 or something like that.
Yeah, so you grew up that's all you knew. Like your dad was around.
I've never known anything other than the gym and bodybuilding.
And so I remember we have a famous picture of you at the beginning of the clip where you were posing with Dorian Yates. Did you get on stage with him?
Yeah. I didn't get on stage with Dorian. So they did a contest. It was a provincial championships. My dad's gym promoted the event, and I was 11 years old, so they had a division, a pre-teen division.
Oh, you were in it?
With 5 kids that we all were in the gym lifting weights and doing calisthenics because all our parents were bodybuilders.
Yeah.
And we got on stage and competed, and
And then that's when you became his favorite bodybuilder. He was your favorite bodybuilder from that time going forward.
Well, yeah, that was pretty cool. Believe it or not, like even when Dorian went pro, like it's great, right? Somebody from our backyard was like
88.
Yeah, so he made his pro debut, I think, in 1990 and got beat by Benaziza at the Night of Champions.
Right.
Then goes to the Olympia after winning the Night of Champions in 91, got beat by Haney.
That's right.
And then, you know, he became the shadow then, right?
In 92, yes.
And everybody loved Dorian's training and all that stuff. I mean, the whole group of guys that I trained with, they're all 10, 15 years older than me, but they were all short guys like us, and so they all loved the Shawn Ray physique, but they loved the Dorian Yates training.
Right.
So it was a little mix of both, and that the 90s were probably early 2000s and 90s. Those were the days where people trained hard. When you talk to bodybuilders, it was always, what training are you doing? What food are you doing? You know, things.
It's interesting that you would say that about the 90s, because there are people today that actually crap on the 90s when we say that, the older guys. And I think it's because they don't really understand the context.
Yeah.
They missed having to wait 3 months for the magazine.
Yeah.
They missed having to travel to see a star and to actually meet somebody that lived the dream and then ultimately become friends. Now I get a random email in the mail from you to come and guest pose at your father's show, come out there in 01, 1 week after the Mr. Olympia. And part of why I have you on the show is because you're a historian, you're an author. You were born into this, much like an Eric Weeder to Ben Weeder. This is all you know. This is all you've ever been involved with your entire life. So having someone like you from another country coming over here to ultimately become a judge underneath the tutelage of Jim Mannion, who welcomed you into the family by virtue of your father's relationship with him. You've traveled the world. Now you're a father. You promote a show in Ireland, basically taking over for where your dad left off, along with Tamer El-Gundy with Muscle International. But you also judge these athletes. You train people. You get them ready for competition. And you've done that before. And you've been on the strongman side where you powerlifted. So your resume is vast. Your breadth of experience is immeasurable right now for your young age by comparison to me. But there's some questions that we want to have answered because a lot of people are gray when it comes to questions like, for example, your hero, Dorian Yates in 94, won the Olympia. A controversial one. But before we get to 94, with your breadth of experience, I've had Boyer Cohen, I've had Lee Haney, I had John Brown. We talked about the 1980 Olympia. A lot of people think that's the most controversial Olympia decision in the history of the sport. Coming from you, how did you see that 1980 Olympia play out? Is it they got it all right in terms of Arnold, Chris Dickerson?
Yeah, 100%. There's no arguing Arnold was not as good as he was in 1975. There's also no arguing the fact that Arnold didn't have to be as good as he was in 1975 because he was still better than everybody else in 1980.
Okay, even with the smaller legs.
Even with the smaller legs, he's, there's everybody else, and then there's Arnold in this show. And then all that happened was it went from everybody else and Arnold. So and it became a little bit of a closer competition, maybe, but there was nobody in the running to beat Arnold. And people talk about Mike Menzer. The only reason Mike Menzer is even in the conversation is because he created the biggest fuss. He threw a hissy fit, never competed again, but just wouldn't shut up talking about it. And it ended up eating away at him for the rest of his career as a coach.
It's interesting because I threw a hissy fit in 94, but it was because of all the people telling me that the champion was off. And then I got a chance to go back and study that the champion was off.
Did you retire?
No, I didn't. I was too young in my career.
Right.
But it is a controversial decision based on what you like. It's just this was your hero that won the show. With the flaws, with the lack of preparation, the torn bicep and the stomach and the coloring, he was still good enough in your eyes as a judge looking back at your hero. Was that a valid decision? We need closure to 1994.
So, in 94, I personally would have picked Shawn Ray's physique.
Yeah, you got to quantify that because
right? If I look at, I don't look at, but Dorian's bigger, so he wins, which is the mentality of a lot of people, right? Dorian was in shape, he was bigger, yes. But then, and you've heard Dorian talk about this, you break it down pose for pose. Dorian's one of the best back double biceps of all time. Shawn Ray's back double bicep in 1994, there's a picture front row, it's a black and white picture. I don't remember who took it. Even Phil Heath and Ronnie Coleman's back double bicep have a hard time keeping up with that 1994 Shawn Ray back double bicep. To me, it's like that, what did Ronnie call it, apples and oranges?
Yeah, it was apples.
And it's got to be that way in my mind. I love the symmetrical physique. And Dorian was symmetrical, but he wasn't aesthetic. And people always mix those two things up.
You had to be at a crossroads of your career because you had your idol, Dorian Yates, there, and the guy that you would eventually meet down the road. And now you have to make a decision. If you're judging it now, Dorian said he won the majority of the poses, therefore
Correct.
he wins the show. But is that all it takes is to win the majority of the poses, or is it the totality of the physique? How are you judging based on that experience?
To me, it's everything. It's
everything.
Like, I don't go, okay, there's a point because he won the double bicep. There's a point because he won the lat spread, and so on. I don't judge that way. So
do you think that if there's just a final thing and you have to go 1, 2, 3, are you giving Dorian straight ones? Is he winning?
If I was judging pose per pose?
94, someone has to win the show.
No, just like 96, 94 probably is more of an argument for Shawn Ray to have won, physique-wise. I personally would have had that as the winner.
Fair enough. What about 1990 with Lee Haney? Lee Haney was considerably off, but it reminded me of the 1980 Olympia.
I think Lee is in the same conversation as Arnold, and off Lee, Haney is still better.
Have you seen any other controversial Olympia decisions since 94 that comparable?
I don't know if they're that comparable, right? Because when Jay won his first Olympia, I personally had Ronnie beating him.
Interesting, because I had Jay beating Ronnie in 2001.
In 2001, yeah.
And he didn't.
And he didn't. But the year that he did, I didn't.
That was 05.
Yeah, and was it 05 or 06? 06.
Yes.
Because I think that was my first time going to the Olympia.
I
was
didn't see
06.
the show, yeah.
And I got a backstage pass.
That's right. Lucky.
Which was pretty cool, yeah. And I got to meet Joe Weider, Betty Weider. So that was a really cool experience. But I had Jay winning in 01. Mm-hmm. And then when I go to my first Olympia, I have Ronnie winning. But of course, my view is skewed because I'm not sitting at the judges' table or even in the front row of the audience until the scores are in.
Sure.
And then we ran out and sat in the front and watched the post down and the placings.
It's different.
And it's very, very different when you're trying to look on that monitor that's backstage and all that stuff. But all of Jay's other wins, of course, I totally agree with. But that one, I was like,
Yeah, there's been some close ones. It's all very subjective. But
of course.
Getting back to your history, because that's why you're here. You're not in the hot seat, by the way. I just think some of you guys are always questioning the judge's calls, and you got to talk to a judge in order to find out kind of the mindset. Brian is not representing the IFBB Pro League. He's representing Brian Bullman when I ask him these questions, because it's a collection of decisions. You got 9 judges, 12 judges at the Olympia?
At the Olympia, I think it's 11.
Yeah, so you have all these different opinions. It's a collection of votes that decide who wins. Brian has his own opinion. And it's not just the Olympia, but you got the lower level shows. You have your NPC Worldwide show, you have the NPC shows, and you got these other ones. But speaking from your experience, since I'm only talking to you, we're gonna get your opinion on certain things. I remember Phil Heath had an issue when he lost to Shawn Rhoden. And I thought he lost because he had the stomach bloat. And I believe that was also the time that Arnold was actually campaigning actively for the bodybuilders to get their stomachs in check.
Yeah.
I think Rolly Winkler was having some issues and a few other guys. Number one, what do you attribute a lot of that bloat? Because that wasn't there until Dorian came around. Before Dorian Yates, I don't recall bodybuilders having issues with their stomachs on any level, on the amateur level or the pro level. And then we get into the mid-90s and here it comes. I think I've heard Dorian quote that it was insulin and growth hormone, or maybe a combination of the two. But I'm seeing it on the lower level now.
Yeah.
And what are you attributing it to?
I mean, I don't know enough about those things to comment, like on the insulin and the growth and all that stuff.
But you see it come.
But I see the midsection bloating. To me, as a fan, as a judge, as a bodybuilder, it's got to do with you're just not doing the right preparation work. You're walking around, you're lazy.
You're supposed to be dieting down and doing cardio.
You're supposed to be dieting down, you're supposed to be doing cardio. But you've seen these guys like super ripped and their stomachs are still bloated, right? They're breathing.
How does that work? You get super ripped and your stomach is still bloated.
I think they're just, it's just laziness.
Practice?
Yeah, they're not practicing enough, controlling the midsection. They're not posing enough, which is evident when you see them do the comparisons. If they're called beyond one round of posing, they're struggling.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was brought up where posing was at least a half an hour every day for the 12 weeks coming into that contest.
When you said you were brought up, when you were in Ireland, who did you see out there? Okay, so you had a few guys come through. I know you had a lot come through after me, right?
I mean, back in the old days, in the 80s, like, you know, you had lads coming over from the UK, like Walter O'Malley, who was Mr. World, the world's most muscular man.
He just passed away, did he?
He did. He just passed away. He's a really good friend of
I met him.
My family.
Yeah.
Really cool dude. He owned that O'Malley's gym in Warrington.
Yes.
And then he was really good friends with Frank Richards.
Frank, the Lionheart. I was trying to remember Frank's last name.
And then Frank would come over all the time, and of course the two of them would come stay at our house, and I'd get kicked out of my room so they could have the bedroom.
Yeah.
But Walter's originally from Ireland, moved to England when he was a kid. In 1980, my Uncle Shawn went to his first Mr. Universe as a 22-year-old and met Walter O'Malley. And Walter kind of was very impressed that there was this Irish guy now on stage representing Ireland, and took him under his wing a little bit and kind of went from there. And so those lads coming in set a new standard for my uncle, and then my uncle set the standard for my generation.
Sure.
And then, you know, things started to spiral out from there, and, you know, you got a few lads from Ireland making it to the Olympia these days.
Yeah, and so with the bodybuilders coming out of Ireland, you're still aware of who's coming out of England. Because I remember names like Shawn Davies, Selwyn Cottrell, Ian Dow.
Yeah. I posed with Ian Dow in 1982.
Yeah, Eddie Elwell.
Eddie Elwood.
Edwood.
Yep.
Who else is from over that area?
Oh, there's a lot. You had a guy called Chris Oskies in 1988 beat Dorian for the overall.
Eddie Abu.
Eddie Abu is from there. JD Duadu.
JD Duadu, yes. Those guys.
Ernie Taylor.
Johnny Fuller.
Johnny Fuller. There's a bunch of others.
Tony Emmett.
Tony Emmett. Bertil Fox came out of the UK.
Killer.
I went to a seminar in the mid-90s, early 90s. And the posters everywhere in every gym were Shawn Ray seminar. And I'm like, oh, we got to go to this, you know?
Yes,
I think it was like 14.
Yeah.
So we get to the venue, it's sold out. Everybody's expecting to see Shawn Ray. And it's Bertil Fox.
Guess who turned up?
Bertil Fox.
Killer Bertil Fox. So I went to his grand opening of his gym at his house in St. Kitts. He was retired. He was still dating Leoka Brown. That's the girl that he murdered, along with her mother. And it was such a beautiful gym. There was a shrimp bay over there, and she picked me up at the airport. She couldn't have been a little bit more than 20. I think he was twice her age. He was very retired and very small. Happened to have his gym. Likeable guy. But I'd heard stories about how difficult Bertil could be.
Yeah, and he was another bodybuilder like that. Was very hot-headed.
Yes.
Threw a tantrum when he didn't get the placings that he thought he deserved.
Yeah, he snapped real quick.
And, you know, at the end of the day, we're a bunch of grown-ass men shaving the hair off our bodies, putting fake tan on,
It's not that
putting on the
serious.
bottom of a bikini suit, getting on the stage asking, whose body do you think is prettier?
But I said there's a lot of dysmorphia in our sport, and that goes with mental disorders.
Oh, for sure. Body dysmorphia is a real psychological issue.
Yeah.
When I was at university, we studied it a bit, and of course, being a bodybuilder, they threw a lot of that stuff over on me to answer. But I never got into bodybuilding because I was too small or too skinny for whatever. I loved the art of building your physique to the way that you want it. I loved the art of posing on stage and showcasing your physique, and then the athletic side in the gym, training and pushing your body beyond what you think.
Yeah, but the fans don't always see the things that come with the end product. They see the physique, but the mentality, the mindset, the brokenness, the insecurities, the aggression, it manifests itself at different times of your life.
Correct.
Unfortunately for Bertil, it ended in a double homicide. He went to jail, I believe it was in 98 or 97, somewhere. Right after I was there, 97 I think might have been the year. He's out now. believe Bertil's like 71, 72 years old. He's back in England. But she's dead and gone, along with her mother. They were both gunned down. There was 3 people there, and 1 gun, and 2 people died. But for all that Bertil was, tragically, with this, the ending of how his bodybuilding career, as a bodybuilder, he was probably the biggest short 5'7", 5'8" bodybuilder I'd ever seen in my life.
Oh, for sure. I don't think there was anybody that had the density that he had in his physique.
The arms, the traps, the pecs. Strong.
Yeah, ridiculous.
He was on the other end with those dumbbells.
150-pound shoulder presses.
And triceps. I mean, as a bodybuilder, he was really... So he wound up replacing me because the promoter I had in England, he set the tour up over in Ireland. He didn't have the money. I'm all the way in England. And he didn't have the money, and he couldn't guarantee the money. So I did not take the flight to Ireland. I rearranged my flight from England straight back to California. He scrambled and got Bertil Fox on a handshake. And I'm not sure Bertil was even paid for that. Mind you, it's only an hour from England to Ireland.
I don't know if he was ever paid. I know that somebody involved with that owed my uncle a lot of money.
And I didn't receive payment. So since I didn't receive payment, this is the business of bodybuilding. It's a business. I'm in England. No Wi-Fi, no cell phone types, none of that kind of stuff. So when he didn't have and I didn't know him from Adam like that. He's a promoter. You want me to get on a plane to fly to another country? I got to be paid in advance. And I put my foot down because I didn't want to go waste my time. I certainly didn't want to work for free. And he was left holding the bag. He got Bertil to step in. Clearly they weren't expecting Bertil. Bertil's still a big name. But I believe Bertil didn't get paid, and I don't think that Bertil did any more business with it. That was a lifetime ago. But you have a lifetime of experience coming up behind your dad, and going back to when you met me, and I guest posed over there, I didn't realize at the time it would be the second to the last time I would ever be on a stage. After you, I went over to England the next night and guest posed at Kerry Key's British Grand Prix. I think Levroni won that one, I believe.
Correct.
I was the guest poser at that. Dorian was the MC along with Kerry Kay's, and one more time, a year later, I would go to Okinawa, Japan, and perform for the troops. But I got tattooed. Your brother had a tattoo place.
I remember it well.
Talked me into getting a tattoo. I was done bodybuilding. But you were getting ready for your journey of a lifetime, because it would be a short time thereafter that you would actually come to America. You'd be out on the town. You'd meet a girl somewhere. I think San Francisco, I believe the story goes. And then pick it up from there.
Yeah, so that year I was away. I was training for the IFBB European Championships, and I was working up in San Francisco, and I met the school, and then I had injured my foot. So you said, "Hey, come down, and I'll bring it to my doctor, and we get him to take a look." And I don't remember what movie we were watching, but she was texting. It was one of those flip phones that vibrated. You were like, "Dude, put the phone away. She's in San Francisco, you're here." And then when you realize she lived in Orange County, of course you got on the phone. She lived 5 minutes from your house, and I think you gave me $100 to take her to dinner. And the rest is history,
Not only did you wind up marrying her, but you moved to my home city of Placentia. And you started a life, and you have an 11-year-old kid?
Yeah, she'll be 12 on Tuesday, St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, life is good for you. But you never stop judging. You never stop bodybuilding, coaching, prepping. And how? Tell me about that evolution, because being a contest promoter back home, living in California, going back and forth to Gold's Gym, meeting all of the guys that you saw in the magazines. What's that like for a European?
At the beginning it was awesome, right? My first time going to the Olympia in 2006, I was kind of anticlimactic, right? I'm backstage. I'm looking at all the bodybuilders, and like, I've trained with him, I've helped this guy with his posing, this, that, and the other, right? I think at that point in time, we'd been to Denver for the Shawn Ray Pro Show. I had met Jim. Jim introduced me to Steve. I sat at the table, did my testing papers. I think we drove Phil to his flex photo shoot at Milos's gym.
Right.
And so, I had been in like all these situations that I'd only dreamed about.
Yeah, we're
when I
still
read
in the magazine era
Yeah.
back then, yeah.
And so, for that brief moment where that almost, I wasn't disappointed, but it was just not what I thought it was going to be. And then all of a sudden, the music hits with the original Olympia theme music.
Yeah, you realize.
And the back doors open up.
You're not in Kansas anymore.
The hair stand on the back of my neck. And when I look, there's a group of security guards coming in with Jim Mannion, Joe Weider, Eddie Weider, Lou Ferrigno, and Michael Hearn. And as they walk up, Jim introduces me to Joe, introduces me to Betty and to Lou, and then he turns around and says, "Hey, Brian, you're going to take care of Mrs. Weider for the evening while we do this little part." And of course, she sits there and she's talking to me, "Where are you from?" I said, "Oh, I'm from Ireland." She goes, "Oh, we don't have a lot of bodybuilders from Ireland. There was one guy back in the 80s and 90s that was pretty good." And I'm like, "Oh, that was my Uncle Shawn." She's like, "That's the guy's name, Shawn." And how the Weeders knew whoever the star was. He didn't have to be an Olympia star, but he was the star in his country. They knew who it was.
Yeah, and you're talking 100 and some countries that were
176 countries at the time, I think it was.
Yeah. I mean, it was a different time to be sure that you got involved, but you're using that now to kind of pay it forward because you became eventually a show promoter of your own.
Yeah.
I think the show that you first judged was mine in Colorado.
Correct.
Phil Heath won, and we had Kai Green the year after. But you have been, that's 20 years ago. You've been doing this for a very long time. And a lot of fans out there want to know about the judging because I lobbied after I retired to be the athlete rep to make some change. But the athletes were too divided. They weren't ready for it, and they're still not ready for it.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. There was a show this past weekend that gave away $25,000 for first place in 2026. I gave away $25,000 in 2006.
Yeah.
20 years ago, I gave away the same first place prize money. The Mr. Olympia 20 years ago was $110,000. This year, now it's $600,000.
Yeah.
I mean, the Arnold Classic 30 years ago when I won it was $70,000. This year they gave away $750,000. How are they allowed to give away $25,000 for first place for a pro competition 20 years after I did it? I mean, does that make any sense to you?
You know, if you're looking at it from up here, you're like, how is it not grown as much as it should, right? If you look at when you won the Pro Ironman in 1990, what $10,000?
$10,000, yeah.
And there's still $10,000 shows, 36 years later.
Why?
Well, I'll tell you why, in my opinion. So if you look back in those days, right, 10 grand was a lot of money in 1990.
A lot, sure.
And you had, Weider Nutrition, you had Twin Lab.
We have more sponsors than ever now, though.
We do, but the difference is your companies back then are turning over 100 million a year in sales, and now your companies are turning over. You got 100 companies turning over $1 million.
Well, we have a lot more. I think we personally have a lot more resources. My issue is I think there's too many shows. Forget about the divisions.
And I would say there's too many small sponsors.
Well, the problem I also think is maybe it's too easy to get a sanction. If you have the money to pay for a sanction, you put it on your pro show. I think the solution is to get rid of these smaller level shows that aren't giving away real money. Look, I think it was Andrew Jack just won $750,000 at the Arnold Classic. 1 week later, the first place prize is $25,000. Nobody goes. No one. I think the guy that just won was like 8th or 9th in the Arnold. So everybody that was in the top echelon would rather stay home than to travel a week later to pick up a $25,000 check. That says something about that. I mean, literally, do we need those lower level shows?
I don't know if that says something about the prize money or if it says something about the athletes that are there, right? So if you go back to the generation part, Dexter Jackson, Kevin, Flex, they went week after week after week to these Grand Prix.
They were all those were all Olympians competing against other Olympians.
Right.
That was business.
So, but if at the $25,000, if you were, I can understand Andrew not going, right? He just won $750. Why does he got to
pick up 25? Because he's a professional bodybuilder and he's in shape.
No, but I can say there's an argument for not going. But everybody else should be going, that's 25 grand, I'm going to take that money because you're in shape, you've done all the work.
Nick Walker, somebody could have qualified for the Olympia.
If you had them sit down with a financial advisor, how do I get the best ROI from my investment in my bodybuilding? Because you're spending the money on your coach, you're spending the money on your nutrition, your prep,
Get it back.
time even that you've used.
Yeah.
Get back as much of it as you want. You know, if you broke it down per day, I made this much.
So the guy that got 8th or 9th at the Arnold, a week later qualifies for the Mr. Olympia and gets a $25,000 check. When the Olympia comes around, that guy is going to have to get in line behind Nick, Samson, all these other guys, and is going to be down on the totem pole when it comes to the Olympia. So you think it is wise to continue having these shows for other guys to have an opportunity to...
I do, because it gives them the chance to make some money. It gives them the chance to keep pushing, right? You know, and you see guys... The prime example would be Ronnie Coleman. Going show after show after show, getting his ass kicked.
Yeah.
Never quit. Just turned up, in shape, time after time after time, and making improvements time after time after time. And then his day came, and he became the legend that he is.
Yeah, he did definitely work his way up from the back of the pack, whereas Lee Haney started at the front, finished at the front, and it's very rare. Those are two very extreme cases.
And a lot of them, their career ends the minute they step off stage. There's not a lot of people like you and Dorian and Kevin that can, and Rich Gaspari and Lila Brada that can
stick around.
See there, look, I just named 5 of them who else is there, right?
Right.
You know, you look at somebody like Lee Haney, who diversified all of his investments, and he has property and all this stuff, and who else has property and became wealthy that way is Arnold.
Yeah.
You know, so there are those.
You're talking about these extra divisions creating more opportunity.
More opportunity for people, more opportunity for sponsors to come in, and you know, if you're looking like Classic Physique, I think, and Chris Bumstead not only grew that division, but it grew the NPC on the amateur side. There's more kids looking at.
Are there more kids? Because they got rid of the teenage division altogether.
They did, and I think that's got to do with...
But that's our next generation.
I agree.
How do you ignore the teenage division? That's where we came from.
I don't think that the teenage division is ignored, because we still have a teen division, but it just happens to be over 18. The under 18, and I don't know 100%.
I don't know. I mean, who's the teen national champion? Where's the junior world champion? We don't even know these days.
We don't have a world championships.
Incredible.
Now, you know, and that went away.
I was the junior world champion.
That went away probably 30 years ago when they stopped allowing the winners of the world championship to turn pro. It went, you won your class, you went to the Olympia. Right. That's how it was. If you go back and you look at the video of, let's say, the 1985 Olympia, they're introducing, you know, former Mr. America, former Mr. Universe, Bob Paris.
How did we get away from that? Why did we get away from
because that? As the federation grew, a split started to appear. And then, you know, you had somebody that was high up in the amateur side decided that, you know, the class winners are not going to the Olympia anymore. The overall winner will go.
Right.
And I think the last overall winner to go to the Olympia was Akeem Albrecht in 1990.
That is, we're going back.
And then in 91, the winner was Ronnie Coleman. That's how he got his pro card in Katowice in Poland.
Right.
And that went away. And then you had to apply. You were world champion. So you had to win your national championships, probably win your continental championships, then win the world championships, and then you had to apply.
I know.
To get your pro card.
I'm getting frustrated hearing you say how hard it was to become a pro, because we just watched Sam Sulek compete as a Classic Physique guy a year ago at the Arnold. Got his pro card. A year later, he's on the Arnold Classic stage as an invitational. He looks a million miles away from being a Classic champion because he's not seasoned. He's not ready. He hasn't had to earn it. Yeah. He went to a show that he got an easy qualification. I'm not knocking him, but they gave him a pro card. And when I go to shows, I'm seeing pro cards being given away first, second, and third. There are shows where you get 85 pro cards during that weekend. what is the need to turn all of these athletes pro and water down the pro division?
Well, I don't know if it's watering it down too much, right? Because if you look at, I could be getting this wrong now. Is it Brandon Hendrickson, I think?
Yeah,
or was it
Zeke guy. I think he just won the Arnold, Brandon Hendrickson. No?
I got it. It's either him or it's one of the Olympia winners that took second at the national show and got his pro card.
And what is the need to turn someone pro who's I don't understand this.
Right, but
you got second,
yeah,
and here's your pro. You're graduating. When we go the next year, we don't even know who third and fourth was. And when we went back in my day, that's all I have to compare it to is the guy that was second and third. We knew the following year we're looking for that guy. Mm-hmm. But first, second, and third are getting out, and then we're trying to figure out who fourth, fifth, and sixth are the following year. Yeah. So we're going to shows like the Nationals, the USA's, and we don't know who these people are because there's no pedigree.
Yeah.
And they're not ready. And then when you go to a pro show and you have 20 guys in a lineup, 3 of them look decent, 4 of them might look decent, but you have a lot of guys that just are not ready for prime time. Can you tell me the need to give away second and third pro cards to these people, even in bikini?
Oh, I think it doesn't matter what the division is, right? But I think when you look at growing the sport as a whole,
that's not growing it. It's watering it down.
Well, again, it's
participation.
We look from here and we look from here and we see 2 different things, and I think that's how.
Wouldn't it be better though? Look, if I got second, I know next year I have a chance to win. I'm going to train harder. I'm going to look better. I'm going to have another year under my belt. It's going to be more competitive. But if I get my pro card,
there's a ton of ways you could look at it, right? You could look at it like this, right? The second place guy is the hot favorite for the next year and use it as a promotion
100%.
Tool for the following year. The flip side is, that you're opening up the pathway to go and become a professional and make it a career, right?
A pace car on a racetrack at best. You're second and you're third, you're getting your pro card, you get there's guys that are better than you because you're not ready for prime time.
And that's the hard part too. And so the downside of that then is that, you get somebody coming out on the stage that won the pro card, but is not ready to fight for that top spot and make it to the Olympia. What happens to their career? Do they go and just fall away by the wayside? Or do they turn that, I've got an IFBB pro card, and create a career as a coach or trainer out of it, right?
It seems like I go on Instagram and everybody's got an IFBB pro card, and I don't know who they are. So it doesn't make it special anymore. At some point, there's going to be diminishing returns. Everyone's going to have IFBB pro underneath their name, and it's going to mean absolutely nothing. At one time, it was very elite. It was very prestigious. Yeah. And we knew the track record. We knew their history. Now everybody's got it underneath their moniker, and nobody knows who they are.
Yeah, and I think there's a multitude of reasons for it, right? Number one, when you got your pro card, it was bodybuilding, and that was it. And it was women's bodybuilding, and that was it. You had 2 divisions.
I watched the evolution.
And then now we have, is it 11 divisions?
Yeah, it was 11. We have 12 now with Fit Model.
Yeah.
That becomes an Olympia. Is that in the Olympia, by the way?
I think it is this year.
Qualifying.
Yeah.
So now we have 12 pro divisions.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad, but I'm just saying we don't need 20 people in each category. We had 80 guys in the men's physique last year, 80 girls in women's bikini. It has gotten so to the point where people would rather just watch the results online instead of go.
And I think that's where, the changes this year with the point system is coming into place to kind of help filter that down. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing it even filter down a little more, maybe, because right now, if you win 2 pro shows, you qualify.
Okay.
Which is, obviously
that's only for certain divisions.
For certain divisions, yes. For classic physique is one of them. We have the Bullman Pro in Ireland. So they get points. If they already have a win under their belt, winning here would put them in.
It sounds like it's becoming a mathematical nightmare.
It is, and
but I think it's a result of too many qualifiers.
There's 2 things. One, you either reduce the number of shows, which I don't think is good for the sport. You have the large number of shows, you change the qualifying process, which gets done this year. Now we're going to have to see how that plays out. If it's me, I'm going, all right, well, you've got essentially a Grand Prix of events throughout the year, and you've got to go and perform in order to make it to the final destination.
Why are you
which is the
saying
Olympia.
that? While you're saying that, I can't help but think how dangerous it starts to get for some of these athletes that are extreme athletes doing crazy stuff just to get to the stage.
And that's where, you know, surrounding yourself with the right people as an athlete is vital, right? Because they got to steer you in the right direction. There's people out there that are under the impression that, hey, if so-and-so did A, B, and C, well, I'm going to do that squared and be twice as good. And it just doesn't work that way.
So we're still there where people are copying what other people are doing. Because when I came up, I was friends with Flex, Chris, and Kevin. I never asked them one time. I can't remember one time where I asked them, what are you guys taking? What are you doing? How much of this are you using? How much of that? It never came up in our conversation.
Yeah, and back then in the conversations were always about real bodybuilding, which is training.
We did it.
And nutrition.
If we were together, we were working
together.
out. Yes.
Right.
And we were eating together.
That's real bodybuilding.
You know what? We saw that with Arnold and Franco and Ed Corney. The pictures in the magazine of them laying around Venice Beach, eating at the lunch table, training in the gym. We thought we could mimic that. And it seemed to work for us because look, Flex, Chris Cormier, Dennis Newman, Troy Zucolato, myself, Richard Jones, all of us were California state champions. All of us became professional bodybuilders. We were all doing the same thing, but what we weren't doing was, what are you doing behind closed doors?
Yeah.
How much grams of protein are you eating? How many carbs are you taking? What kind of anabolics are you on? Those conversations didn't exist.
Yeah.
And we didn't have advisors to go to. We were just leaning off and copying each other.
And I think that's part of the problem that people have with arguing whether the 90s and 2000s is better than today. And I would say it's got to do with the intensity of the training. You know, you'll see a lot of guys take a break from mid-session to set up the tripod, to put their phone up, and, I got a video of this set for my followers. You know, and that ruins the flow, right? And if you know anything about human physiology, you'll understand that that's not good for creating that adaptation that you need for the muscles that change, right? If you look at the way you trained or the way Dorian trained, if I came in the middle and said, hey, stop what you're doing, I got to set this tripod up to take a picture of you, you would have told me to go F off. I got the Olympia to win. And Dorian probably wouldn't have even uttered the words. He probably would have just pushed me out the door of the Temple Gym, you know what I mean? And if you look at his video, what was it called?
Blood and Guts?
Blood and Guts. And I think it was Kevin Horton shot that video. He told Kevin that he could come to the gym and shoot him, but do not get in the fucking way. This is not and I don't know if he said anything about your lifestyles of the Fit and Famous video.
Yeah, that was...
This is not one of those videos. You can be a fly on the wall type of thing, right?
Sure.
Just don't get in my way.
What a contrast, the lifestyles of the Fit and Famous and blood and guts. I was selling a dream in mind.
Right.
And I think Dorian was showing you who and what he was. I think we really were like...
Yin and yang, for sure.
Well, not yin and yang, but like he was Clubber Lang.
Oh, right.
And I was Rocky after I won the title. But I had the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air in mind. I had lifestyles of the rich and famous in mind. I wanted to sell the dream to make people want to come and be like me.
Yeah.
And that was my perception of what I wanted to be. I wanted to be that successful athlete, driving around in a nice car, hanging out with hot chicks, working out at Gold's Gym, making money. And it resonated. I couldn't believe the reaction that we got from Lifestyles of the Fit and Famous, which was filmed in 1989, came out in 1990. I know there's a digital download on GMV videos by Wayne Galash.
Yeah.
I know you can get that there. This was an iconic film, and it's in stark contrast to Blood and Guts, where Dorian was like Clubber Lang doing the gritty, nasty. Who was the guy in the background? Leroy yelling at him or whatever. Yeah. But what a contrast of personalities, and we were both selling the dream. Regardless of how you receive it, there were two contrasts in how we wanted to promote the sport of bodybuilding. So we were talking earlier about training styles, and you come from a strongman background. You were a powerlifter.
Yeah. So technically, I guess I would just call myself a strong bodybuilder.
Okay.
And so
because you weren't monitoring the poundages like a powerlifter.
No. So when I started training, you know, I I had always trained as a little kid, right? Just messing around with the dumbbells in my dad's gym. And then as things started to progress, and even at 89, as an 11-year-old, I was still just messing about. I played soccer, I played rugby, I played hurling. And in 93, after watching my uncle Shawn be like, almost like a superstar in Budapest, and I saw Lee Haney on stage, Frank Hillerbrand.
Very impressionable.
And I was like, holy shit, there's 6,000 people in the audience at the Europeans all screaming when my uncle was on stage.
Yeah, John Brown said he was guest posing for 10,000 people. We can't relate to that.
And they went crazy in Europe for bodybuilding. And so that was like, oh, I want to do this.
Yeah.
So in the car, going to the gym, my uncle Shawn turned around and said, hey, listen, if you're going to train with us,
let's put some weight on the bar.
You better step it up because you can't slow us down. And it was a baptism by fire, and I got strong pretty fast. But, when I won the World Powerlifting Championships, the weight that I benched there, I ended up benching for reps as I'm training for a show 2 years later.
That base helped you as a bodybuilder.
That heavy lifting is what made me a decent powerlifter, right?
Sure.
Shawn started as a powerlifter and then became a bodybuilder.
Yeah, it reminds me of like a Branch Warren, a Johnny Jackson.
Yeah.
You gotta put some weight on the bar. Yeah. I mean, otherwise you're just not gonna have the density that you actually need. What advice would you give as a judge when you're watching these shows and you're like, you can't bark out to the athlete doing whatever he's doing on stage, but what are some of the common things that you see that maybe you would want these athletes to understand while you're judging from the table? You want them to do and behave a certain way. Now, this should normally come at an athlete meeting before a contest, addressing the athletes. Hey guys, as a judge, here's what we're looking for. Here's what we expect. Because we watched this Fitzwater kid go up on stage and he kind of threw a hissy fit when Nick Walker beat him. Yeah. And we've seen some elbowing and some pushing and some aggression that didn't look sportsmanlike. Yeah. We've seen some behavior backstage. We mentioned Craig Titus and some of the guys that
breaking
trophies.
Yeah.
What and should this happen the day before the show, or should this happen mandatorily throughout the year to remind the athletes that you are a paid member of a federation? Here's the code of conduct that we expect, because I don't know that that's actually happening. I know there's workshops, but some of these athletes need to be reeled in and reminded what they expect.
I think it's something like the Arnold and the Olympia, that conversation probably shouldn't even have to happen because they're all experienced at that point. But maybe some of the guys making their pro debut and definitely at the NPC level say, hey, this is what we expect. And when we go to an athlete check-in at a muscle contest event, we walk them through the entire process and you've seen me do this in Hawaii at the Orchard, from the check-in process all the way through.
Right.
And then, if I'm the one on the microphone, I like to talk about what's going to happen on stage.
It's a reminder, because they're dieted down, they're depleted, they're confused, they're scared, they're nervous.
Too, it's always great to have good, experienced expeditors on the stage to help guide them as well, especially if there's, somebody there that's this thing lately where they're throwing their hands out like this.
Yeah, man, it's like the guy gets hit in the face. I mean, you got a big ass stage. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, the stage is huge. The spacing of the markers on the stage for the athletes to stand in is set out in tape. You can see it clearly.
Remember Kai Green and Phil Heath, Kamali and Titus, and now we got Nick and Fitzwater. What I've never seen is two girls go at it. You know what I mean? No. I've never seen the bikini girls.
Yeah, they don't. They're much more polite, I think, especially, and they're a lot more cordial towards each other. I don't see any big rivalries. I could be missing something here, but you see somebody like Ashley Castwater on stage, on and off the stage. She's just a pleasure to be around.
That's
right?
why she's a world champion. Yeah.
She loves what she does, and I think that type of stuff is contagious, right?
Let me do some wordplay with you. I'm going to mention some names. Give me your opinion. Most bodybuilders don't have the privilege to just retire on stage and walk away. Mm-hmm. Even Lee Haney did not do that.
Yeah.
Dorian Yates did not do that. Very rarely do we see a bodybuilder. I remember Dexter Jackson, I believe, did. during the COVID Olympia in Orlando, Florida, where I think he finished in 8th place that year, and he knew the writing was on the wall and that it was over for him, and he never looked back, never came back. Smartly so.
Yeah.
A lot of bodybuilders try to come back and it fall on their face. But what did you think about Rolly Winkler? From Curacao, the islands, turned pro, winning the Arnold Amateur.
I've only met him a couple of times. I don't know him that way, but his physique-wise, I mean, his triceps and arms are just
his arms are some
insane,
world class.
And he's another guy that, in his quest to get big, allowed that midsection to blow out a bit. I think he fixed it a little bit. But yeah, he's one of those guys that will go down in history as a freak, right?
How about Milo Sarcev? Have you had the pleasure of training at his gym back in the day?
I did for a minute till he kicked me out.
Yeah, kicked you out. Because of your opinion, I might add. Based on opinions, I blocked him.
Yeah.
Me and Milos have butted heads.
But, I see him now, we get on great. So he had a very aesthetic physique.
Yeah.
He needed, I think he needed some bigger arms, had some good legs, good chest, shoulders. And that,
nice shape.
To me, he would have fit really well in the classic division today.
Classic.
Right? In my mind, what the classic...
What do you make of Flex Wheeler?
Flex was unbelievable. He was fantastic.
And everybody says he's the uncrowned Mr. If you had to pick one guy, he is the guy that should have had a title. What year would that been?
So my argument with that is,
what year?
Name the year.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that, yes, he won whatever number of Arnolds, and he was unbelievable.
But what year did he peak?
I don't think there was, I think his best year ever is 1993, to be honest with you.
Agreed.
But I don't think he came close to Dorian.
93 Arnold Classic. Let's quantify that, because Olympia, he was not at his best.
He didn't. I don't think he ever came close to beating Dorian, and I don't think he ever came close to beating Ronnie. I think in '98 when he took second and Ronnie won.
That was fair.
That was a good call.
He just had problems with his hamstrings and glutes his whole career. I think one of the better versions of Flex we saw was, I think it was the '98 British English Grand Prix, where he was super big and round.
Yeah, and there's a famous photograph from that show too.
He was.
That's an impressive.
But it wasn't the Olympia, and that's the problem. Everybody's judged by the Olympia. What about Dorian? Was that a sad, tragic ending of his career, or was that something we needed to celebrate in '97 in Long Beach when he left the stage?
I think that
Nasser El Somebody should have won that show, as far as I was concerned.
I don't think he should have, right? I think Nasser from the front looked great, and from the back.
But you could say the same about Dorian. From the back, Dorian was great, but from the front, I think it was almost equal.
So
flip a coin.
How I see things in my mind, not just that show, any show. If it's close,
you got to go to
from the front, right?
Okay.
Or from the.
I didn't think it was close.
I think you got to knock him out.
I didn't think it was close from the front.
But you got like.
Nasser crushed him
but
from.
This goes to Dorian's thing that we spoke about earlier, right? Pose by pose. From the front double bicep, front lat spread, did Nasser win those two shots? Probably won the front double bicep.
If he won the front double bicep, for sure.
Yeah.
Dorian had a torn bicep.
Torn bicep,
and tricep.
Without doubt. But I don't think the rest of his physique, in every other pose, you don't see those flaws.
His side chest was freaking nice.
Dorian?
Nasser's
side chest. Listen, he's not second place for no reason, right? He was no slouch.
Yeah.
But I don't see it as enough to knock Dorian off.
I think that was Nasser.
But I think that
here's the thing: if that was being judged now, they may have been able to. They're changing every year the winners. Because
and I think that's
if it's close, they're going with the guy that's the best.
I was talking about this the other day with my father. Like the what ifs, right? What if Shawn Ray won in '94? What would have happened bodybuilding? Like where would Shawn have taken it here? What if Jay?
I would have retired.
What if Jay had won? What if Jay won it in 01?
Yeah.
What would Jay have done?
Right.
Different with
there's
his
a lot
career,
of
right?
There's a lot
of what ifs, right? And it's like that saying you heard me say before: if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle, right? But we can't go back and look at that. But I think it's great being able to go back and get what do you think of, Dorian? Should he have retired on stage? If he knew then that he was retiring, it would have been great to say goodbye to the fans.
Celebrated him, right. But he missed that.
But I think he's done a whole lot more since. He's become great ambassador.
Yeah.
He wasn't a great speaker when he was Mr. Olympia, but he's fantastic.
I say that about a lot of bodies, including myself. I mean, the abrasiveness is gone, the competitiveness is gone. So the testosterone levels have lowered, and I think you get to know the individual instead of the physique. And you peel back the layer and you realize that a lot of us are very similar in our insecurities, and some of our confidence was built up based on our success. It's much more pleasant to be around a Dorian Yates now than the idea of being in the same room with a Dorian Yates in the 90s. He was the enemy. What about Vince Taylor? Is he one of the more under-celebrated Olympians?
I think so. He never should have lost the Masters Olympia.
2001. That was his 5th time. Oh, he was trying to go for number 6.
Yeah.
And he lost to Don Youngblood.
Yeah. I didn't see that way myself personally, but that's how bodybuilding works, right? We all see different guys, and it's whoever's on that panel.
Yeah, it was a way of saying goodbye, get out of here.
Yeah. But they're guys that
he seems under-celebrated for what he did.
100%.
He got 2 third place in Olympia, won the Nationals in 1988, won a slew of Grand Prix shows.
He was the winningest
at the time.
At the time that he retired, nobody had won as many pro shows as Vince Taylor.
And nobody ever talks about
it. And one of the best posers out there.
And he was also 10 years older than me.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize
that Vince was old.
Yeah, he was an older guy.
For the time, he was old.
Yeah, and he started late.
30s, yeah.
John Brown found him at like 27 years old or something like that back in the day. Let's keep it moving. Kevin Levrone, the Maryland Muscle Machine.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin was phenomenal, right? And I think his best chance was against Dorian. Was it his first year where he took second in his
92.
Olympia debut?
Yeah.
But I still don't think that was enough to beat Dorian either, you know?
Yeah, he was a little thin in the back.
Yeah.
I thought he was coming off the Night of Champions in 91 that he won.
And, he had unbelievable shoulders.
92 he won the Night of Champions, Chris Cormier, is that a...
Chris is the guy that almost.
Dorian always says almost, but he won a lot of shows.
He won a lot of smaller shows, took second at the Arnold, 5 years in a row or 6 years in a row. I think his best at the Olympia was 3rd.
Yes, his highest, he got one third in 1999. He might have got a 3rd after that too. He has 2 third places.
And he could have been a Mr. Olympia, I think, if he had put it all together, which I don't think he ever really truly did.
Yeah, well, you think Samson will ever make it back to the Olympia circle?
I mean, that'll remain to be seen. I think, I have had him pegged as the second coming of Lee Haney.
Yeah, and that didn't pan out.
And, well, it did when he won the Olympia, right? It was 2 years. Here he is. Didn't repeat. He's looking particularly huge.
Is that good?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, but as a spectator, you have an opinion.
The physique he won the Olympia with is the physique that I love.
Yeah.
If he can bring back that, and I don't think he needed to be bigger. I think he needed to be a little bit more polished.
Yes.
I think his chase for conditioning didn't pan out. So he came in a little bit smaller. Mm-hmm. I don't think he was better conditioned than what he was when he won. He was just a smaller version of what he was when he won.
Right, but getting bigger, you think, is a solution?
Me personally, no.
How about Derek? Derek seems to be an under-celebrated two-time, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Olympia, and no one really celebrates that. Why is he not getting the flowers that he earned?
That's a puzzling question, right? Because you got to give credit where credit's due. Derek's Arnold win, his condition there, unbelievable. Condition at the Olympia, not quite as good, so that's probably what has people...
A lot of people had Hadi win.
In their mind. I didn't have Hadi winning, and I wasn't judging either. I was doing security backstage.
Yeah.
But from what I saw, Andrew Jack was the guy that I would have put in first place.
3rd, yeah.
Yeah, and that's coming around now because he beat Hadi at the Arnold, and he's obviously going to be the front runner going into the Olympia to challenge Derek.
Do you think he can hold it together? Because look, Andrew did the Olympia, got 3rd. Mm-hmm. Seems like he's on the same thing that Samson did the year previous. He got 3rd, then he wins the Arnold. I think he's going over to the UK.
Yeah.
And then he's got to do it all over again in September. And does he have enough gas in the tank to do that and pull it off? He's a big guy.
He is a big dude, and I guess we'll find out. The thing with him is he's like a Vince Taylor, right? He started late.
Yeah.
And you know, see, he's still maturing as a bodybuilder, even though he's chronologically older. He's still a young bodybuilder, right?
How about this for numbers, man? Okay, so he just, at the Olympia last year when he got third, I believe he made like 150,000. Mm-hmm. He just won 750,000. Mm-hmm. So I'm not a mathematician, but that sounds like 900 grand.
Yeah.
If he wins next week over here at the Arnold Classic, 250,000, mm-hmm. he's at 1.12 million. Goes into Mr. Olympia and he wins another $600,000. I mean, that is a lot of cheese.
A lot of money. You know what's funny is
it sounds like a winner take all.
But that's how it is, right? Like, look at Tiger Woods winning everything that he competed in at his peak. Yeah. Nobody else was getting a shot at that prize money. If Tiger Woods was at the golf tournament, he's taking the money.
Where does Andrew Jack land if he's in the 1999 Olympia? You had, obviously, Ronnie Coleman winning. You had Flex Wheeler in second. Chris Cormier third. Fourth was Nasser.
He'd be pushing to get in the top 10.
I was fourth. He'd be pushing to get in the top 10 of the 99 Olympia. Yeah. We are living in some strange times when we're looking at what's being rewarded because it seems like it's evolving. But you can only judge what's in front.
You can only judge what's in front of you.
Who's coming up? There. Have you seen anybody coming up? After the top 5 guys of the Olympia, is there anybody?
You know, there's a few bodybuilders out there that I like. One of the guys that I really like is physique, and he's yet to put it together on the stage when it counts, is Rafa Brandao.
Ah, yeah.
From Brazil, and I think he trains out in Flex Lewis's gym in Las Vegas.
6th place at the Arnold Classic. Yeah.
And his physique is like, he's got decent size, he's got good symmetry, good aesthetics.
He doesn't look like a natural bodybuilder up there when he gets these guys.
He's missing that, right? I don't think he shows. Maybe he's got to change his presentation. I don't know.
I thought he should change his style of training. I said he needs to get with like a Branch Warren or get with like, he needs to do some powerlifting.
And I've never seen him train, so I don't know. But that's one of the things that I notice a lot, right?
He's got to thicken up.
You look at guys training.
That'll tell you all you need to know.
That I can tell when the guy's on stage how he trains. Mm-hmm. I'll know, like when I see a back double bicep, that they're doing their back with their arms. They're not doing their back with their back. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I've learned or noticed from training with you, training with Dorian, training with Johnny Jackson, or even Ronnie Coleman, is even though you all have very different training methodologies, mm-hmm. the technique was always impeccable. Yeah. And I remember being already a national champion and a world champion, coming and training with you when you're correcting my technique. And I'm like, in my head going, is he correcting my technique? Like, my technique is flawless. I pride myself on it, but you spotted something that was a half inch out of place. Mm-hmm. You corrected it. Dorian saw something. You know, Johnny Jackson saw something that made me a little bit stronger.
So it brings me to the coaching aspect, because it seems like there's more coaches than there are competitors, and everybody's teaching or coaching online, not even in person, the virtual online.
I think that's a consultant, right? You're a consultant. If you're online, you're not a coach, because you got to be there in person.
Yeah.
I've often thought about, hey, you know, maybe I should retire from judging and become a coach, because they need the guidance, right? And what I do, I'm a strength and conditioning coach, because there's more money in it for me and there's more joy, right? When I look at a bodybuilder, I can teach you how to be a coach, but I don't have the patience to deal with somebody going, oh, I'm tired. Because I'm low on carbs, so let me set up my tripod.
You're not a psychologist.
And I'm just like, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, you know, you need to, you're here to win a show.
Yeah, you can't convince them.
Stop doing your shit. Like,
there's so much insecurity.
I understand stuff has changed media-wise and promotion-wise for the athletes. Right? There's a lot more athletes can make a lot more money because of social media than back in the day when you had.
But isn't that the problem, Brian? I mean, I started bodybuilding to win titles. I wasn't starting bodybuilding to make money.
Oh, for sure.
The mindset was, I got to just be the best I can be. The money will come.
Yeah.
But it seems like people are starting to bodybuild or physique because they want to get likes and follows and make money. That seems like the wrong motivation.
And you can be they're like a Victor Richards, right? Victor was a big dude, very impressive.
But he knew his lane. He was Mr. Big.
Right, and he didn't get on the stage against you guys, even though I think he was invited several times. Sure. Got offered a pro card. I think he got an offer of an invite to the Olympia one time.
Right.
Never
Didn't take it.
Never took it, which was a smart move for him because he would have got his ass handed to him.
And then he would have been a
and
mortal
he'd be
man.
done.
Yeah.
Right? But for me, if you're a competitive bodybuilder, the priority's got to be on the competitive side.
Yeah.
If you're a bodybuilder that's making, I think Rich Piana was more successful
promoting himself
than he could ever have possibly been as a competitor.
to his own demise, I might add.
Right. But the move for him to go that way was probably the best thing for him, money-wise or success-wise.
Yeah,
Didn't end well for him, and
I think when you chase the money, you miss the journey, because it's not fun thinking, how much can I make, or how am I going to make? If you're not dreaming about that victory and that feeling, you're going to lose sight of it. And the coaches are going to be in your ear, especially when they're from far away, telling you mixed messaging.
Yeah.
And how do you overcome that? Like, do you need a coach? I mean, I think Nick wound up doing it on his own, and finally he looks better than he ever did.
I agree, because now he's bodybuilding, right?
He's bodybuilding.
For real bodybuilding. And I don't think you need a coach as much as you need the master. You look at somebody like Neil Hill.
Neil Hill,
right?
Right.
They call him Yoda.
Or
He's
George Farah.
George Farah. These are guys that have been there, done that.
Yeah.
Right? And if you go to the gym with either of them, you're going to know that you're
Would you have a coach that never stepped on stage before?
Not a hope of it.
Would you have a coach that's giving you nutritional, drug, pharmaceutical advice on how, even these guys that are helping the girls walk in bikini in heels, these bikini coaches?
I'm not taking advice from anybody that doesn't know more than I do, number one.
Not only that, but you got a degree in this nutrition.
I do.
And you also served in the military.
Yeah. I have a lot of stuff going for me to put me in the position where I am today, and I have a lot of people to thank.
You wrote a book.
I did write a book on leadership. It's called The Prepared Leader.
And what is that about? Summarize it.
So, there's a ton of leadership books out there about leading teams to this and leading teams to that. You can't lead anyone until you're able to lead yourself and take control of who you are.
Where is this book?
It's on Amazon.
And what do I type in?
Just, you could type in Brian Bullman, it will come up, or type in The Prepared Leader, it should come up.
And what are you trying to accomplish with the book?
A stepping towards being accountable for who you are and leading yourself to achieve your goals.
A lot of bodybuilders are followers, bro. They have
are.
no leadership skills at all. They're just looking for the right path to go, and these coaches are dangling carrots in front of them and draining them of their finances.
The part of the book is what we call the 7 Ps, right, of success. And I got those 7 Ps from my dad when I was a kid.
Okay.
So you look at somebody that came from absolutely nothing. My grandfather was a sergeant in the army when the pay was worse than it is now, and it's crap now. He was a cook sergeant, so he would bring rations back from the barracks and feed my dad and his brothers and sisters. I know my father telling me about they didn't have money for shoes. He left school when he was 12, then went back and got his education himself.
Kind of reminds me of the John Brown story, right? Like,
yeah.
My dad, he was a civil engineer, but he came up through the Jim Crow era and the segregation eras to start his own janitorial business and find. I mean, you can find your way, and,
for sure.
And sometimes your parents are the best examples of what you want to do.
And my father's motto was like, the 7 Ps, which are proper planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance.
This is all in your book?
It's in the book, and then there's a couple of stories in there of where I had to use the lessons that I've learned through him and through life experiences to get out of certain situations or to deal with stuff. From bodybuilding, from my time on deployment in Lebanon.
It's all is intertwined.
Yeah, and it's not about me being a leader of teams, even though I have been. But the lessons that I've learned from other people and my own experiences to lead myself, right?
What do you tell the guy I want to be a bodybuilder. I want to be an Olympia winner. I want to do, I want to do what Dorian Yates did. Some guy sees Mr. Olympia and goes, I want to do that. The 11-year-old Brian Bullman. And you have a chance to talk to this kid today. What are you going to tell him based on your knowledge?
I would always look and not push them towards this, that, or the other. I go, you can achieve anything you want in life.
Sure.
And I tell my daughter this all the time. You got to work for it.
Sure.
but you have to do the right work. You know, so if you're coming in to be a Mr. Olympia and you're not consistent with your training, you're not consistent with your food, you're not learning that this food agrees with me and that food doesn't, or if I eat too much sugars, or basic stuff, right? And the fundamentals of bodybuilding are pretty simple. Protein, carbohydrates, fats, balanced, eat enough, you'll grow, train hard enough. You don't do these things, nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah, right? And that can't be talked into you. That's like, you have to do the research.
Yeah.
You got to seek out the foods that are agreeable to you, compare and contrast what kind of liquids you can drink, what kind of, how soon you should eat before you train, after you train. I mean, it is a religion.
Yeah, and the one thing that I would do is try and learn from as much people as you can, and that's what I did. Like, I've traveled 3/4 of the world. There's parts of the world I haven't been to Australia yet. You know, my plan is to get down there one day.
I won the Junior World.
Tony Doherty's gym one day.
Yeah.
But
24/7 gym.
I was lucky enough to watch Tom Platz train when I was 8 years old. Watch my uncle train my whole life. You know, go and train and stay with Dorian for a week.
You know, the successful athletes that I know, Jay Cutler, Flex Wheeler, Kevin Levrone, Lee Haney.
Flex Lewis came over here the same time as me. Look what he did.
Those athletes went outside their comfort zone. They didn't just go online to try to look someone up or have someone, you know, lead them down there. They actually sought these people out, met them, got their advice. I was mentored by John Brown. I sought out Mike Christian. I looked for Chris Dickerson. It was all possible pre-internet. Well, we are going to wrap it up here for Where Are They Now. I brought Brian on here as an example of what's to come. Not only is he a former bodybuilder and a strongman, but he's a contest promoter and a judge and a trainer. I mean, there is something for everyone. And the more things that you can engulf yourself with, the bigger you spread your thought process and your group of friends and your breadth of knowledge, it will help you along the way in this industry, because you're going to meet different people. Not only did he meet the bodybuilders of his childhood, youth, and become friends with them, but now he's mentoring kids coming up behind him. He's got a daughter in gymnastics. It's a whole different world, but the mindset for a gymnast is very similar to that of a bodybuilder, including the nutrition and the mentoring that you got coming up through this industry. He's able to share, and the breadth of experience being a judge and a contest promoter. He knows what the athletes are going through on stage. He knows what to look for. He also can give you critique and feedback. These are the type of personalities I want to bring on here to help answer the questions that you guys have. I've been reading the comments. I appreciate the engagement, but we're going to continue down this road of Where Are They Now? Coming up, we've got some very interesting guests coming up in 2026. Brian is one of the odd ones because he's not that bodybuilder of yesterday, but he did give us some information that can help us along the way coming up on future shows. So Brian, I want to appreciate having you here on Where Are They Now? Living in America, not in Ireland, but you do have a show coming up in May in Ireland.
We do. Tamer and I have it's actually not even one show. It's one weekend with 4 shows. We have the All-Ireland Naturals, which is the NPC Natural Division.
Yep.
And that's on the Friday the 29th. Then on Saturday the 30th, we got the regional show, which is the qualifier for the international in May. Yeah. That's called the Tournament of Champions Ireland. Then that's followed by Muscle Contest Ireland, which is the show you emceed the original one in 2018.
Yeah.
That's the pro qualifier, 8 pro cards, one, the overall winner in each division. And then we have the Classic Physique Pro, the Bullman Pro, from which, you know, Tamer renamed the Bullman Pro.
Yeah.
Muscle Contest Bullman Pro after my dad and my uncle to recognize them for all of they've done for bodybuilding. And so it's really like from the beginning to the end of your competitive spectrum of events.
Absolutely.
The overall winner in the Classic Pro card gets to go into the pro division the same day.
Well, again, and that's an example of where this sport can take you. You start out as a little kid, looking at a Mr. Olympia, become friends with that guy, you meet his nemesis and his arch rival, you get his brother to put a tattoo on your arm, you move to his home city, you get to train at his gym. Next thing you know, you're judging competitions and traveling around the world, and we've got 25 years of friendship between us and mutual
I think my-
respect.
Lily goes to your former elementary school, right?
Yes, your daughter went to my elementary school, Brookhaven. It was Brookhaven Buffaloes back then. But anyway, this is a journey of 1,000 miles, and it begins with a single step. And you know where you're at, but you don't know where you will go. But we do know where Brian Bullman is now. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Where Are They Now?